5:32 p.m. I ask that you stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you. Thank you. Welcome. Thank you for attending this meeting. Next item on the agenda, approval of the agenda. Pleasure of the committee. A motion by Mr. Fiorillo. Do I have a second? Second by Mr. Denon. All in favor? Ayes have it. Mike, are these microphones working? Okay. Good. Next item on the agenda, discussion with Durham Student Services regarding bus routes and schedules for the 2017-2018 school year. But at this point, I'm going to pass it over to Superintendent Mr. Mitchell to maybe read some guidelines that we have developed. Thank you.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you all for coming. And as Chairman Salvatore said, our goal here is to have a productive meeting and a productive and respectful conversation about busing in the district. We know that there are a few concerns, and our goal is to provide information and answer any questions that parents might have. And what we always do when we have our meetings, Mike, can you put up the goals and our norms, please? Whenever we have a meeting, in fact, as an example, we had a recent administrative retreat. We like to establish some goals that we can really focus our attention on, and also establish, more importantly, some norms for the conversation that we have. And I'm hoping that what I have identified here as the goals will really get at what we intended for this meeting. And if not, please, I would welcome anyone to add whatever they think is applicable. But we want Durham to provide some information about how routes are developed. We know that there's been some concern about a specific route, and I thought using bus 26 as an example would be helpful to us in how pickup times and drop-off times are created. We want to hear the concerns of parents. We want to maybe have a conversation about what we can do to reduce the time that students are spending on the bus. And one of the things I've learned, it's not just the time that students are spending on the bus from the moment that they're picked up from their home to the time that they get to school, that there may be some additional time that they're spending on the bus at school, which was helpful to me. And one of the things I think that we need to consider also is if we, and I don't know that we're going to get to all of these things this evening, but if we decide to consider a change, will that have an unintended consequence someplace else? So those are the goals. I don't know if there's any others that anyone feels we should discuss. If not, and we can, certainly things will come up in conversation. And certainly norms are important, I think, and I'm confident that this will happen, but we want to be respectful to one another, even if we have differing opinions. We want to share our specific positions in a respectful way. We want to provide an opportunity for everyone to speak, and we discuss this a lot in our administrative meetings. We don't want any one person to dominate the conversation. I don't know if there are any other norms that anyone would like to include here. Yes, sir.
I definitely don't want to see any personal attacks on anyone.
Well, that's, I think, where the word respect comes in, but your point is well taken. So I just thought maybe, we might need some notes to be taken. I set up an easel over here, and I might also be the note taker. And we want to respect everyone's time, so hopefully our time together will be efficient. I thought it would be a good idea to provide a little, just like an overview of the number of tiers that we have to transport our students to and from school. So I have some information here. Paul and Ann, if I'm wrong, please correct me. But based on the most recent information I have, we, as you may or may not know, we have 4 tiers of bus runs. There's the high school, which starts at 7:15, and those of you that know anything about me, that is a major league issue for me, because the start time for high school is way too early. It's actually unhealthy. But so we have one tier for high school students, and I believe the total number of buses that we use for that run are 23. Does that sound about right? There's a middle school run, and we use 20 buses for the middle school, 2 middle schools, and there are 36 buses used for the elementary schools, and there are 2 separate tiers. So we actually have 4 tiers of buses transporting students to and from school every day. 1 at the high school, 1 at the middle schools, and 2 at the elementary schools. And one of the things that I wanted to share with all of you, and I appreciate this, Durham has produced a document that provides information like this. When they give the specific school, the specific bus route, when students are picked up, or there is a designated pickup time and a designated drop-off time at the end of the day. But this document also provides the total distance from the pickup point to school, and it provides the total expected time that a student is supposed to be on the bus. So this is I think a pretty helpful document, and we'll make that available to folks. I don't know if we can certainly, I think there are 10 here or so, and I think you may. Okay, so there are 12. We can certainly make them available. So with that, I'll put them out on one of the tables if you all want to grab one. And I think it's important to mention that, this certainly doesn't take things into account like traffic. And we know that there are going to be instances where there may be, unfortunately, an accident, or sometimes it's the weather. And one of the things I've learned over the last couple of years is that Mendon Road is like one of the top 2 or 3 most traveled roads in the state. So I'm not making excuses. That is a fact. So we have to contend with that. So with that, I'll put this down on the table if you folks want to grab a copy. And what I'd like to do, Mr. Chairman, is I'm gonna go to the grab the microphone, and I think this would be a good time for Paul Neves and Ann DeTore are here from Durham to share some information with us and to help us by answering any questions that you may have. So with that, why don't we start with what we hoped would be the first goal, and that is just can you talk a little bit about how the routes are developed?
Thank you, Superintendent Mitchell. So, go ahead. Durham?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
So each year, as you know, there's always changes that impact the changes on the route. And a lot of input is put in each year based on what happened the year before, and the changes with either new developments, new families moving in, out-of-district students that ride on the regular ed buses have a massive impact on the routes. When we develop the routes, you'll hear a lot of times that you'll see parents or members of the community say, well, I see that high school bus and there's only maybe 15 kids on that bus, 15 children, and what puts a route together is not just the amount of students, but the distance it has to travel. So it would be from point A would be the first, that's when the clock starts ticking. So if they've been to the high school and they leave the high school at 7:15, they have a transportation window that bus needs to stay within those guidelines of those minutes. Now, if they're going to the other end of town, it will take from the moment they leave the high school and the travel time to the first stop. So if there's for example, I'll keep it simple, a 30-minute window, if the travel time from leaving the high school to that very first child that they have to pick up is 10 minutes, and you've got a 30-minute window, you have 20 minutes left to pick up children. And when you get to a certain point and you have to get to the middle school, you have to say, well, at what point do I have to make that time to get back to the middle school? So you may only be able to pick up children for 12 or 13 minutes. And you'll see here on all of these that it differs on every single route, because once you reach that point where it's going to take you from that last child that you picked up and you've got 11 minutes to get to the middle school, that's when you stop picking up children and the next bus will take over. Another bus will take over and pick up the children beyond that. And once you've picked up all of the children, that determines how many buses will be at each school. And that's why you see the difference with every school, different amount of buses, different amount of children at each school, and different amount of travel time and transportation window. It's not an exact science, it's all computerized. I will tell you that. We can't control traffic, although we do try to account for the traffic and know that Mendon Road is one of the most heavily traveled roads in the state. It's unpredictable. Other factors that may lengthen a run at the end of a day is if a parent's not there, and today was a perfect example. We had a parent that was not at a bus stop but called and said she would go somewhere else. The bus driver says, well, I'll meet her at this next stop. Wasn't there, and that delayed that driver from getting to the next school. We now hold the children on the bus. So if an elementary child at the third tier, the parent's not there, and we need to take that child back to the school, we continue on. We drop off all of the children and we continue on to the next school, and then that child will be brought back to the previous school at the end of that run, so that it doesn't interfere with all of the other parents that are waiting for that particular school and the school that follows.
I have a question about the bus times that we get, the lists of the schedule. Are those for ideal conditions or expected conditions?
Perfect conditions.
Perfect conditions. So when you say you account for traffic, and we know weather is different at different times of the year, but that doesn't account for traffic, or does it?
It does to a certain degree, but again, you don't know if there's construction, if there's an accident, if there's just heavy traffic on Mendon Road or any other road, and it is unpredictable every day.
So it's perfect conditions. So
It typically is. And we do allow, every bus, the speed on every road is calculated, but we reduce that to allow them to get to each stop on time. But again, it's the same as if you were going out shopping and you had 10 errands to run that day. Can you predict what time you would be at each place? Yeah.
Is that it? Is that it for your update? Paul, anything to add?
That in a nutshell.
That's everything that is.
Superintendent Mitchell?
All right, sorry. So the reason that we're using the mic, we don't need the microphone, but the reason that we're using it is we need to use it for the video, the televised viewing of this school committee meeting. So, okay, so thank you for that overview. I mean, as you can imagine, it's definitely not an exact science because there are things that happen that are out of our control. And just as an aside, we know that the construction on both Mendon Road and Diamond Hill Road, there's going to be some roundabout work, and there's also going to be some new water lines put in. So at some point, you know, and the town has been informing us about that, and that's going to, at some point, create some transportation issues, not only for students on buses and at bus stops, but also for parents who transport their children. So that's something that we can anticipate down the road. I know that they were going to start working on a roundabout, but that was delayed because of some issue with the state. It had nothing to do with us, as I understand it. Okay, we know that it seems that, and I need to tell you all something, and I hope you know that I'm being brutally honest with you here. And that is, this is my third year as superintendent. Last year was my first full year as superintendent. The year before that, I didn't become the superintendent until like October of that school year. And to be honest, like, we've had fewer complaints about transportation this year than any year that, you know, for me so far. And Cindy Shabbat, who is my assistant, she said she was like surprised that we haven't received a whole lot of phone calls regarding busing issues. So I just need you to know from our perspective that things have gotten off to a pretty smooth start. That being said, we know that there is a particular bus that has had some concern. So, and it's bus 26 for community school. And so we want to have a conversation about that and at least consider what we might be able to do to reduce the amount of time that students are at least some students are spending on the bus. Yes. Okay, so bus, okay. So I just am using bus 26 as an example, but that's just an example. We can certainly talk about bus 19 at Ashton too. So I don't know, what is the best way to go here? Do you want to talk about bus 26 or do you want to hear from folks about what's the best way to?
Superintendent Mitchell.
Yes.
Why don't we, you're doing a great job, maybe have any parent who wants to come up for public comment, but maybe keep it structured towards, if it's 26, we'll do 26, and then after then we'll do 19, and then after we'll do 14, you know.
Fine with me.
Do that. All right, great. Okay.
Does anybody want to share their?
So the next item on the agenda is public comment. So when you come up to the microphone, there's a sign-in sheet, state your name, your bus number, and the school in regards to you talking about. Thank you.
I'm Tamika Soulier, bus 19 for Ashton School. I also have a question about the preschool also. So bus 19 picks up the middle school, Garvin, then Ashton. They don't finish their Garvin route till 10 minutes, ideal time, after the kids get out of school. So our kids are getting home an hour at least after they get out of school. They got home at 4:23 at my stop today. The published time is 3:44. Then they said that changed to 3:56, and only one day have they been home before 4 o'clock. So they go to Anthony, then they drive however long, depending on traffic, back to Ashton to then pick up and go to the other stops. And I'm the fourth stop, second in our neighborhood.
Bus 19 is one of the routes that we're working on, and we did have a conversation with the school committee that we wouldn't make any changes. We'd give it a chance to shake out a little bit and see what needed to be fixed, because we want to look at everything. And I apologize that it's late the way it is, and we are working on it. And we can make some minor changes right now, but we're looking at just exactly how many buses may be running the way 19 is. And then we want to make those corrections and have a one day, on a Monday, where we say, okay, this is what's changed, because we don't want to piecemeal it together.
No, I know, but I know in an ideal situation, and I know that all the buses can't be there for when they get out at 3:25. But in an ideal situation, they're not out. The bus isn't there minimum, it's still at the stop 10 minutes after they get out. I have a first grader. So when he comes home, he is already tired, he's hungry, and then, which extracurriculars aren't necessarily the school's problem, but like today he has football. Now he's got to try to have a snack, try to have dinner, try to do everything. We're not walking in our door till 4:35. I mean, it's over an hour after they get out. And it's not just, I mean, it's our whole bus that, you know, obviously talks about it. I don't know how many of the buses do it. Obviously, I'm here for my kids. But I just don't see how that route makes sense.
Okay, so what we're going to do, so with Durham being here, it's not necessarily going to be an answer.
No, I know.
So I just want you to know, so it wouldn't be fair of us to have Durham sitting in the front and say, give us answers right now. So we're going to log the answers, but it is logged as a concern, so we will follow up on that, and then whatever Durham wants to add, and then we'll make sure, and I appreciate your concern.
So I have one more question.
Oh, absolutely, please,
I have a
go.
daughter in the preschool. I don't know if it's anything going on at Ashton, because they're always trying to drop the kids off because they're getting there so late also, but they also come home. My estimated time for drop-off is 3:50 to 3:55, and she came home at 4:10 and hasn't been home before 4 o'clock again. Then, which isn't a big deal because they don't get out till 3:40. But I don't know if it's Ashton holding up the preschool, so I don't know if it's all the preschool. I don't know. I know they pick up over here, they pick up over there. I know it's, you know, but again, she's not on the bus as long. But
What's a she?
46.
Could you make sure to put those two bus numbers down on there? Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I can actually address part of that pre-K issue.
Mr. Neves, please.
All of the buses that do pre-K, well, excuse me, most of them have the last tier elementary school. There are a couple that do not have the last tier elementary schools. And most of them are minibuses. During the first week, and we've only been pre-K for 4 days, 5 days, losing some days. Definitely was delayed the first couple of days because we want to make sure the right students are on the right buses. The buses, as Ann mentioned, if we get backed up at say the bus is going from Cumberland High School, does North Cumberland Middle School, then it does Cumberland Hill. If it gets backed up at all at Cumberland Hill, then the pre-K time's gonna be off. It could be a child, a parent not being there, could be a delay at the school because of traffic issues at the school. But that's what's causing some of the problems with pre-K. We are definitely gonna be adjusting pre-K runs once again. There's a possibility we'll be sending, I was talking to the router today, we may be looking at changing and putting another bus into the pre-K. Not an additional bus for the school department to pay for, but an additional bus already on the runs that would go into the pre-K and help out. So we definitely are working on the pre-K. That being said, pre-K is not the only one that we're having a problem with buses being held up. I mean, we have, all right, community school, there's 12 big buses there. To load 12 big buses it's outstanding how well they're doing it right now. But they definitely are delayed at the school by what time the buses get there and we stage the buses. Because if you go to community school approximately at 3:30, you're probably gonna see 6 to 7 buses sitting there waiting to get picked up. waiting to have scholars come on the bus. Then it takes time to load the buses. We will be going out, members of the team are gonna be going out to each of the elementary schools in the mornings and the afternoons. We haven't had a chance to do it, but we're gonna be doing it starting next week to see if we can expedite them in the morning and expedite them in the afternoon. Community does a great job getting those buses out of there. They do. Ann personally went last year and saw the great job the community does. It's just the amount and mass of scholars at that school. That's one of the issues. We have schools that are right now only unloading one bus and loading one bus at the school at a time. If I've got 7 buses, possibility that could take 25 minutes to load all 7 buses before they're out. That 25 minutes is the time we should be at the next school.
Mr. Neves,
Yeah.
Mr. Denon has a question.
Go ahead.
It's related to that. So on community, I know there are a lot of buses.
Yes.
And I forget the total number.
I think there are 12.
12 total. How many do you expect to be loading at any one time?
I believe last year when we were there, they were loading 3, or 2 to 3. Two. And that's what, if they're loading 2 at a time, it's gonna move them along pretty well. The minibuses go in there. We do have the minibuses getting front, because like most of those buses have to do the pre-K.
Is
So,
there any way to be creative about the street and try to load more? Can you close the street down and load 4 at a time?
probably
somehow?
would have to talk to the town on closing the street down.
Well, I mean, but I think we're affecting a lot of kids. That's our biggest elementary school by far.
Definitely is your biggest
So
element.
anything we can do to help these kids get home before 4 would be welcome, I think. So, I guess, I'm just sort of thinking, maybe irrationally, but I'd like us to explore those kind of solutions if we can't do it some other way.
You can definitely have.
This sounds like maybe Superintendent Mitchell can work with the principal there to see how we can expedite students into the buses maybe a little bit faster. So we'll take that down. Mrs. Goggin.
Can I just go back to bus 19 for a
Yes.
second? I want to ask how this kind of happened, but bus 19, the last stop for Garvin is at 3:34, according to the schedules that are online right now. The first drop-off from Ashton is at 3:35, according to what's online right now. So I'm assuming there's an updated schedule, since this is physically impossible to do.
There will be an updated schedule.
How, and if you can't answer this, how does that happen, that a bus would have a minute in between dropping off, going to another school, and dropping off again? Like, how didn't that get caught somewhere along the line?
It should have got caught. That was a failure on our part. You can't just use the computer to do the runs, and we understand that. So it definitely should have got caught. But there will be some updated runs and stuff come through. She mentioned Anthony Drive Stop. That Anthony Drive Stop for 19 does not have any scholars there. So we realize that now. There was a scholar schedule to be there. It's not there. That's going to be eliminated.
So it would just seem like, until it gets fixed, there would at least be an updated schedule for these Ashland parents, so they know when to expect their children to get dropped off, until some adjustment gets made.
Yes, come on up to the microphone.
The bus driver, when we asked what the time was gonna be, said that their list said 3:56. So then we called and, they said there was discrepancy first couple weeks, and we got it, we understood that. But again, the bus hasn't shown up before 4 o'clock at all. So we're out there for 20 minutes, and I also have my daughter coming home from the preschool bus at the same time, 5 houses up, and I have a 2-year-old daughter who's either napping or so have to be in 3 places at the same time for 25 minutes to 40 minutes, really, when I'm waiting for bus 19.
Thank you. Mr. Hess?
Mr. Neves, I have a question. When you're looking at the afternoon loading, community has been the size it's been for several years now. The driveway has its issues, and we understand that. But when you're coming up with your estimates for how long it will take to load up a school, are you taking into account that you're anticipating loading 1, 2, 3, 4 buses at a time? and communicating that information to the principals ahead of time? I mean, there has to be some assumption that you're making as to how long it will take to load up a school.
We definitely are assuming that it would stay the same way that the amount of buses were loading last year at the same time. So, 2 buses at community. Am I gonna tell you that it was constrained to the principal, that we thought there would be 2? No, we did not do that, and we have never done that. The principals have pretty much determined what they felt was safe. If we feel there was an issue, we would go, we'd meet with the principal, which we actually, I just received an email from the principal today, and has asked us to go over and see we were already going to do that next week. Starting Monday, we're gonna be going to all the elementary schools. But Mrs. Vaughn emailed me, and we've had contact with her about how many buses they can load, unload at a time. There is a possibility that community, if there was a way we could double tier the buses, we might be able to go to 4 buses at a time, but that becomes a safety factor, and it's a big safety factor. That you, Mr. Denon, you'd have the only way that would be able to be done is to shut that road off to complete car traffic during the loading time, because we just wouldn't be able to do that. Yeah.
That would have to be a question for the
Yes.
town and the police department.
Yeah, but going back to my original comment, I think it would certainly be helpful, and I'm not suggesting that the bus company dictate how things are done, but it would certainly be helpful, I think, to communicate what your assumptions are when you're building the schedule to the administration, so that that can be passed down, so that if you're assuming that you're loading 2 buses and the principal comes back and says that's just simply not possible, that we get ahead of some scheduling snafus because of incorrect assumptions on one side or the other.
Mr. Fiorillo?
I'm sorry, I'm gonna let you speak in just 1 second. Paul, what is the time that the first bus drops off at community?
Drop off at community, there are buses waiting at the first bell at 8:45. I believe there are probably there's probably 2, if not 3 buses there at the 8:45 drop-off time, which is the time that drop-offs can start at that school.
So, also, Mr. Fiorillo, let me mention this, and Mr. Neves, maybe you can touch base on this. When a bus gets into the area of the school, it is a geo-fence, correct? And that's approximately 50 feet around, so it logs automatically into your database? So that's how we're getting these times? Yes. Okay.
If you look at community in this list, you'll see on the AM where it says anchor time, that the buses are staggered getting to the school. So you have from 8:40 to 8:55 where buses are arriving.
Okay. Thank you very much. All right, please state your name, school, and bus number.
Kendra Pyrus, Ashton, bus 19. Quick question, you just mentioned anchor. For the PM time, is that the time that they're arriving at the school right now to pick up the children?
In the perfect world, that is the time they're gonna be arriving at the school.
Okay. So, in other words, looking at that then for the anchor time for Ashton for PM, no bus picks up at Ashton until 10 minutes after dismissal, according to this. So I just wanted to state that as well. And I apologize if any of this is repeated. I know Tamika had mentioned some of this too, and then one of you up here addressed a little bit of what I have in here. My daughter attends Ashton Elementary on bus 19. The posted schedule that parents have access to in the morning has a pickup time for my stop at 8:43. It's 20 minutes later than last year. A drop-off at 3:49, only 2 minutes later than last year. We have less stops on the route this year, and all of that would be okay if it were actually happening and working. When they say the routes will be ironed out, I don't see it happening based on the bus route that is given to 19 this year. The bus my daughter rides on also goes to NCMS in Garvin. The first week, my daughter was picked up after school started at 9:05, and there were still 4 stops after her. The last few days, she's finally picked up at the scheduled time, and mind you, in the morning, there is never a bus monitor on the bus, but they're still arriving to school late. I understand she's not marked late, but she's missing instructional time and should be at school on time daily. I believe the 20 minutes later is because of being picked up in the morning reflects the switch of Rocky Crest neighborhood being picked up first, where they used to be last, and also that bus 19 is shared with NCMS and Garvin. I feel like it needs to be worked out for the morning so that all students can arrive to school on time. Aside from that, not just arriving to school late every day, my daughter sits at school for 20 minutes every day after dismissal waiting for her bus. We have a scheduled drop-off time of 3:49, but the times on regular school days, not early release, have been 4:30, 4:15, 4 o'clock, 4:23, and 4:18. A classmate of my daughter's has a sister in the Ashton preschool, and they get dismissed at 3:40. The other day, her preschooler arrived home before her sister, who had been dismissed at 3:25. And this is the reason why a lot of people on the Ashton route right now are deciding to pick up their children, because they have places to be and after-school activities to be at 4:30 and 5 o'clock that they're not making. These times are not going to be ironed out unless buses are changed. A bus going to an early elementary school should not also be going to a late elementary school. Bus 19 in particular picks up at NCMS and has a scheduled last drop-off time of 3:02. 7 minutes after Garvin is already dismissed. Then they have to drive and pick up at Garvin. The last drop-off time for Garvin for bus 19 is 3:34, 9 minutes after Ashton has been dismissed. Now that bus needs to get to Ashton. The schedule on our drop-off time says 3:49, and that is never going to be possible with 5 stops before ours, and the bus doesn't even get to school until 3:40, 3:45 at the earliest. Meanwhile, we have bus 39 from Ashton. Their last drop-off scheduled time is 3:40 at Cumberland Crossings, while all the other kids are still waiting at school for a bus. I had originally written on here that it would make more sense for Rocky Crest neighborhood to take that bus, since they're close by, and keep 19 for behind the high school in the New Clark area. I did see, however, that bus 39 has 64 students on it after looking at this, but bus 36 has only 19 students, and bus 36 is picking up Forestdale, which is behind Seabra. They take 2 stops on New Clark Road, which is in our neighborhood, and they're completely split. So if 36 would take Rocky Crest, which is all the way down across House of Pizza, which is near Forestdale, it makes more sense to chunk them together and put New Clark Road back on bus 19 when bus 19 drives by those 2 stops every single day, because that's the way they leave the neighborhood. As a suggestion, buses that are scheduled for early elementary schools could easily come from Cumberland High School, with any of the Cumberland High School extra buses heading towards late elementary schools, while the middle school buses could then focus on just going to the late elementary schools. So I just wanted to kind of voice the opinion on that and maybe give a few suggestions after looking at the bus routes of what some of them are doing. I just don't feel the times are ever going to be ironed out if one bus is doing north plus an early elementary and plus a late elementary with it.
Excuse me, what? So,
Yes.
excellent. Yeah, thank you. Can you give that copy to Paul?
Sure.
Yeah, Mr. Neves, please. Thank you. Hello, welcome.
Hi, Melissa Bouvier, also bus 19. My son is the second to the last stop.
Would you mind also signing in?
Oh, sure. He is the second to the last stop. Today he arrived home at 4:25. And again, the scheduled time is supposed to be 3:55. The bus driver informed me last week it was changed to 4:07, but today, 4:25, I haven't seen him before then. One day, he came at 4:10. Every other day, it's been 4:25, 4:30. Last Wednesday, first day of school, I'm a teacher in another district, I get it, first day of school, it was 4:40. I called the bus company, I couldn't get anyone. I called the school and was informed that the bus left the school at 3:55, which was the time he was scheduled to be home. The only...
On the first day? That was on the first day?
That was on the first day. It is the first day of school, so I get it.
No, I understand. Okay.
I get it, but the only suggestion I have is my son is in the 3rd grade. This is his 4th year taking the bus. This has never happened before. If we went back to the route the way it was, might solve a problem.
Okay, so we have bus 19 down. Yep, thank you very much. I appreciate it. Anyone else?
My name is Jeff Cullimer. My son and daughter, my son currently goes to community school. My son and daughter's been there. You know,
What bus number are we talking about?
Bus 26.
26.
So
okay.
first I want to thank everybody for your hard work. I know
Thank you.
I appreciate everybody focusing on this, all your time. You know, and I do want to say, you know, to the point of The first week.
And then also,
this
when you get
year-
a chance, please sign in too.
Yep,
Just
will do.
wanna make sure. Thank you.
The first week was much smoother than I've seen in the past. So again, kudos to everybody. You know, I know shuffling this amount of children around is not an easy task, and you know, working with everyone in the community, all of us, and those, all the others, I appreciate. Having said that, you know, I guess the questions I have are primarily that last year, same routes, seemingly. My son was picked up, I have the exact times, but it went from 8:14 in the morning, it moved to 8:01. So there's a 13, 14-minute more earlier pickup. And in the afternoon, it moved from 4:05 to roughly 4:21. So there's another 15 minutes that's been added to the morning and the afternoon. And I guess the first question I have, and could be to be answered later, is what's the rationale for that? Why is that an extra half hour? I guess the second point, I understand that we're at the end of the route. Bus 26, where I live is on Brill Lane. I'm not sure you can get much further from community. So I get the fact that I think it's evidenced by the 8.6 miles. So it's a long route. Having said that, my son is roughly on the bus for an hour in the morning and an hour in the afternoon. Now that includes the time at the school, as I understand. So the bus may not be traveling. So I guess my question then becomes, he's sitting on the bus at the school. Has that changed? Is there something that can be optimized there? And I think you spoke a little bit to getting on and off the buses and the time they're sitting there in queue. And that may contribute to it. I guess as a suggestion, and again, I'd be curious to hear opinions. My son tends to be I'm pretty certain the first one picked up in the morning, the last one roughly. I think he's third to last in the afternoon. I could be a little off. What is the implications or possibility of inverting one of the routes? Meaning, as we all know from Star Trek, the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few. But in our case, it's my son, and trust me, I get it. It isn't all equal. Having said that, he seems to be on a lot longer than pretty much most of the kids. Is there any consideration put in play for trying to make it so that some kids aren't just on the bus for 4.5 minutes total in the day, and others aren't on for 2 hours? Is there some effort put forth towards trying to normalize the time on the bus so that some don't end up with really extreme times, short or long? And then I understand that the last point I have is that long transit time or time between pickups and at the school being an hour, I think, certainly in Community Bus 26's case, causes parents to consider, maybe I'll just drop off. And as I understand, when parents start saying, I'll just drop off, less kids on the bus, you get the bus traveling, now you get more traffic, you get more cars, further elongating all of this. And, so I think it's in everyone's best interest to obviously try to figure this out so that parents don't have to drop off kids. Kids don't have to sit on the bus for a long period of time. So, that's just generally my thoughts. I'm not specifically asking for an answer here and now, but like I said, in our case, and I think I may speak for others, roughly 2 hours from pickup to getting into school and school home seems extreme.
I missed your last name. I apologize.
Collimer, Collmer.
Mr. Collimer, excellent content discussion at the microphone. Durham, are you prepared to talk about this? If not, no problem. We can come back with answers. But would you like to approach on it?
I think we can answer some of the questions that
Perfect.
he's stated.
Okay.
When a route is built and the bus will go to the furthest spot it's going to pick up from the school and work its way back. When the drop-offs are done, it goes from the closest spot to the school and work its way forward. We can call it forward. So that's why the pickups and the drop-offs are reversed. Okay? We can definitely investigate things, but when you investigate things, you may be able to satisfy, I don't know, say you're gonna satisfy 12 people, and you're going to upset another 35 people. As a matter of fact, I've gotten a call on 26, not the first pickup stop. Actually, it's next to, probably the second or third pickup, next to close at the end, and drop off the same thing. And this mom is very concerned because of the amount of time the child's on the bus, due to the fact that he is a special needs child. So if I were to go back and say, okay, guys, all right, the children up on, is it Gremlin?
I'm referring to Brill Lane or
Oh,
Brill
Right,
Cobblestone.
the children
and
in
things.
that area, the cobblestone.
Yep.
So if I were to say, okay, let's compromise and pick them up first like we were doing, and drop them off first, then I'm gonna have a number of parents, all from the reservoir, say, why was there a change in the time?
Well, if I can interrupt
Go
for a
ahead.
moment. Yeah, I guess what I was suggesting is not reverse both, but kind of, it's a long in the morning and a short in the afternoon kind of thing. So reverse half the route, the morning or the afternoon, not both.
I
You know,
understand.
so that's all I was
understand what you're trying to say.
We have created some different route scenarios for bus 26, and we will present it to them, and we will make a decision as to whether or not we can make that change and that it makes sense. And the reason that it's easy, reverse the afternoon, but we'd be
I
passing.
didn't say it was easy.
No, I know, it's easy when you look at it, but, so you leave the school and, pass some of the children's homes and go to the end of the route and then work back, so I'm not sure how that's gonna,
I see your hand up in the back. I have to get to
So,
two school
yeah.
committee members real quick. So Mr. Fiorillo and then Mrs. Goggin.
Paul, you just said that routes generally start furthest from the school.
Furthest from the
and
school,
work toward the school.
and work toward
towards
the
the
school.
school. Is there any coordination between the tiers? So they leave Ashton School, let's say, and whatever school they're going to next. Instead of going to the furthest from the school, do we go to the closest from
Depend-
the last place the bus was?
That's a good question, depending on what school they go to next.
Right.
If it's a third tier that we're dealing with, say it's Garvin, for instance. If that school is going to community at their next school, then you're gonna work your way toward the community stops,
Okay.
or the community school. So, the last tier schools definitely go the farthest away from the school to pick up and move toward, and drop off the opposite way.
So now, my next question is very simple. Would more buses solve all these problems?
solve them, more time, bigger transportation window it would save on adding more buses, but when you open that transportation window, buses can do more, because what builds the run is the amount of students, the time and the distance it has to travel. But when you open that transportation window, you have more time, so you can pick up more students, fill the buses, and I could probably add another bus now to that area. But we work with what we have as far as, how many buses we have for each school, how many buses are available for each tier.
Right, because again, this becomes a funding issue for us where we have to save money where we can on buses so we can have teachers. All right, thanks.
Mrs. Goggin?
You brought up another parent calling that's on that route, and I'm curious why you did, because looking at those routes, it seems that this would either have reversing the route would have no effect on that child, or possibly even benefit that child, just doing a little bit of math there. So I'm not sure why you brought that up. It would seem like that student's best interest should have somewhat of a priority there too, since they're not on a special needs bus. My other point I just wanted to make, you talked about going to the furthest stop first, but the NCMS route does not do that. It starts around the reservoir first.
Like I stated, it's what school that bus is going to next also sometimes determines it, or before.
Well, in the morning, it's going to NCMS.
Correct.
So I don't know how that would be relevant. It's the last stop is their neighborhood, correct? And then it's coming back, it's driving all the way back down Diamond Hill. Why wouldn't it start at that neighborhood? Sorry, guys. and come back towards North Cumberland. I'm just saying, if that's your reasoning to give them, why isn't the same applied?
Coming from a different school.
Is it coming from? Hmm?
One, but then in the afternoon,
Yeah.
it would be the same.
Well, the only school it would be coming from is here, correct? The only school it would be coming from is Cumberland High, or is it coming from somewhere else? I mean, it can't be coming from a different,
I understand what you're saying. And I'm just saying, in the perfect world, with routing, we go to the farthest from there. Now, 20 may be the epitome of runs for certain people. Then the 20 afternoon goes to community school. So if I'm not mistaken, they do the North Cumberland Middle School, and that school, that bus's route actually ends right on the North Cumberland Middle School run ends right on Hillside. So that's why they're planning to go back that way.
I guess I'm talking about the morning.
All right. We can look at that, but it's just.
Okay. Did you have a question?
Yes, so my name is Christina Castro.
I apologize. If somebody else had a question in the audience, please come up to the podium. You can ask that question, so.
My name is Christina Castro. I live on 45 Farm. I have 2 children on bus 19 that go to Ashton. And I realize bus 19 is a problem right now, and that's not necessarily what I wanted to ask a question about. I've been at a lot of meetings in the past year about the school budget. I know that we're in a crisis. I know that we're, needing to cut places where we need to cut. I also know that this is a service that you have said to our school department that you can do. And I'm concerned that I have a child on a bus that goes to 3 bus stops without the bus driver getting a break and constantly in a rush. I know as a parent, when I'm in a rush, it doesn't help anyone around me. And my kid is getting to school, missing her morning work. And I mean, she's still having good days, but you're missing your morning work, you're already starting in the school day rush. We don't want our students starting the school day and feeling anything but ready to learn. And if you're offering this service and you see three bus routes that this bus driver has to make in a very, very short amount of time with a lot of traffic in Cumberland, we've talked about the traffic in Cumberland, I'm having a hard time sitting here listening to kind of what you can and cannot do when you've offered a service. I'd ask you that you rethink adding a school bus or doing something because you haven't been able to offer the service you promised.
Adding a school bus would not be Durham's decision. It would be the school committee and the superintendent's decision in regards to funding and what it costs for that bus.
I get that, but I also don't understand why, if this is a service and they couldn't complete the service that they've promised to the school district, why this wouldn't be partly on something that they need to look at. So that was my only question.
Well taken.
Thank
All right,
you.
Thank you. Mr. Denon.
Related to that, I have a question of how do we determine how many buses we need? And who determines that and when is that determined? Can you answer that? Or is that it?
The middle school buses and the elementary drive the fleet. So, at the high school, you may not need as many buses at the high school because of ridership. But we base it on the school that needs the most buses is the total amount of buses that we utilize.
So does the number of buses change from year to year? Like last year to this year, what's the difference in number of buses? Do we know that?
There's only one additional bus this year, and it's a special needs bus.
Okay. Yeah, because I mean, at the same time, our district has been growing. We added 170 kids over 2 years. Now, that's overall 12 grades, so, you know, or even 13 grades. So it's hard to know whether how that would affect busing, but it just makes me wonder, how do we determine how many buses we need? And I think we all know that adding buses would help alleviate a lot of this problem. But I think as a school committee, we never see a request for more buses. Like that's not your problem. I think it's just, you know, we never get a list like, well, you could, you know, A, B, or C, and you pick one. We never see that. So I just wonder how it works.
Mr. Tomatica.
Anna, Paul, correct me if I'm wrong, but when we generate the elementary runs for the year, we're generating it based on every child taking the bus. Am I correct on that? Then we have to work off that list because we have parents driving their children. Am I correct on that? So we plan for every child, even though we know we're not going to get every child on that bus. All right. And how do we
Dennis?
shake that out during the year?
It's not just the amount of children on the bus, it's the time and the miles they travel. If you look at some of them, they appear to be overloaded, especially the high school, but we know that they're not. You may see that, you know, a bus with a 62 passenger may have 80 students boarded on it. But again, it's more the time and the miles that dictates how long that bus and how many children can be on it. Because we have to, there's a breaking point where we say, well, we only have 20 children, but we've got to get to the school now. So we can't add more children to that bus. And that's why I said, if they had a larger transportation window of time, that would equate to more children and more distance traveled, more miles traveled.
How much time do you think Durham would need between middle school and elementary school to?
We have to do a route scenario study, but that always improves the amount of buses that you would need. But it also, again, we wouldn't have the late buses either.
My other question is with the new police station, because I keep on hearing Garvin buses, with the new police station that's gonna go on High Street there, do we have any contingency plans in place yet with the town or the police department to get the school buses out of Garvin when this construction starts? I mean, I know I've asked the mayor about putting a light there, and they told me to go fly in the wind. Wasn't gonna happen. But do we have a contingency plan for this? Because I see trouble with construction workers parking and trying to get buses out of that building.
Well, we've been in conversations with, since the police station was going to be built, be it at Garvin or being across the street now. We were in conversations right away with the mayor on what was gonna happen. Positive move is, it's not as close to Garvin as it originally was gonna be, because construction would have been, it would have been a complete nightmare with the building being built, with school being run, if the building was being where it was originally.
Looking at the plans, the new driveway to get into this facility is closer to the driveway that exits
That
out of
comes out of
Garvin.
Garvin. Garvin has always been one of our issues. The one egress out of Garvin is very difficult with the parents and everything. The major plan we would have loved to have happen, if they were putting the police station at Garvin, we were going to look to see if they could put a drop-off in the front of Garvin for the buses, not for the cars. You'd come in front, there'd be a little circular driveway. The issue with that is all the buses would basically have to go. The only way the traffic would keep flowing is if all the buses would have to go right. We would have bit the bullet on that and said, okay, we'll do that, and we'll just get them back around the way we need to. That's not gonna happen. The funding for that might have been able to be put under the police station if it was on the Garvin property, well, in the Garvin right there, but that's gone by the wayside. It just can't happen. But we definitely are in communication with the mayor's office on all of the construction. When the idea of the turnabouts came, or roundabouts came, we were in discussion with them on when it was gonna happen, what's the time frame for it, even the water pipes coming in. We were in constant conversation with the mayor's assistant, Stansfield. So we definitely are speaking to them about all.
Okay, we will follow up on that. Thank you. Mr. DeMonica, anything else? Okay. All right, please, go ahead.
Sorry, I just wanted to add something else, kind of to back up the gentleman that came up from bus 26 too. And I know this was a little bit addressed because he had talked about turning the routes around, and he had mentioned of how they start going from the furthest away to the closest. Ours has never done that for Ashton. The only difference in ours this year, Rocky Crest, which is across from House of Pizza, so down the street over there, last year they were picked up last. They've always started up Farm Drive, they make their way back through and come out New Clark Road. This year, they start at Rocky Crest, they still come up Farm Drive, come out New Clark Road, so they are going completely backwards. It's the same way they drop off with it, but we have less stops this year. They eliminated a couple of stops on our route in the back of Farm Drive, plus they eliminated the 2 stops on New Clark Road that our bus has to drive by every single day and put them on a bus that's going behind Seabra, so completely opposite ends. But the route we had last year, it never failed. The kids were home by 3:47 every single day. Our kids, because Rocky Crest was afterwards, on the way to school, were picked up at 8:23 every day. They were on the dot every single day. If you eliminated eliminated bus stops from our bus, and last year hit those spot on, I don't see that when they say only 1 bus was added to the district this year, if it's not broke, why try to fix it? I mean, we're getting kids at 4:30 now.
We'll get some answers to that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. Anyone else would like, Mr. Denny?
No, I was just gonna say, it's not the same kids on the bus, though, right? Like,
Correct.
Kids
The
are
landscape had changed, yes.
Stops though, but they took some off, but the direction and everything they've done is the same.
I just mean, maybe you can't reproduce the route from last year because the kids are different, but do you think the stops are the same and they reduced 2? Is that what you think?
Stops are the same, but they've taken out 3 stops.
3?
Hello, Kelly Piatti, Community, Bus 26. So I'd like to address a couple things. One is the neighborhood has actually been complaining about this exact route for 30 years, and it has never been fixed. That's number one. We have people who have, children have grown up, people who have lived there since birth, who have had issues with this route that are my age now, and their children are taking this bus. So I'm a little disappointed that we came here today and you don't even know where bus 26 is coming from because you're stating North Cumberland Middle School. Meanwhile, it's coming from McCourt, where this has been an issue for this long. That's number one. Number two, we have not asked, I've been in this town for 3 years now. I actually grew up here, but I've been here 3 years with my children taking bus 26. We have not asked to completely reverse the route and pass stops because logically and logistics, that does not make sense. Agreed. What we have asked is to eliminate how long Cobblestone Road and Brill are staying on that bus for. They are the 3rd stop in the morning, being picked up at 8:01, as was previously said, and they are the very last stop at 4:21. What's not included here on your anchor time in the evening is we are actually the first bus that leaves the school. School ends at 3:25. They are called down as the first bus, and they are out the door as the first bus. There is no bus in front. We have had multiple excuses given to us. We can't switch the route because they'll get stuck behind a bus. Not accurate. There's no bus ahead of them. We can't switch the bus route because it would add time. But if you clearly look at the anchor times, distance in the morning is 8.6 miles and it's a 42-minute ride. In the evening, but based on the switch in the route, it's a 48-minute ride, which again is inaccurate because it says anchor time is 3:40, but it's really, let's say 3:30, give the kids 5 minutes to get on that bus. It's 10.4 miles. So by not doing the route that you're doing in the morning, minus a couple of the stops like Edaway and, Thomas Layton, Diamond Hill Road, the ones you're passing on the way up to Cobblestone, it's 48 minutes. You've added an additional 5 minutes to the route by not starting where you started in the morning. I've mapped the route out. I'm more than happy to give you a revised route since I see it's clearly difficult to do. I am in logistics. I understand the process. I understand starting at the furthest point, which again is not necessarily accurate because 174, let's see, what's the address here? 174 Burnt Swamp Way is pretty much in Rentham. That is the furthest stop. I get why you're not doing that as the very first stop because it's so far out, so you start at Cobblestone. I totally get it. But what I don't understand is why it's so difficult to go Edaway, Thomas Layton, Diamond Hill, Fisher, then Cobblestone, and then continue your route around the reservoir. It is a giant circle in town.
So they would have to go up Diamond Hill Road where they do not have
Regardless,
stops?
We start at Diamond Hill coming out of Community,
I get that.
and you
yeah.
end coming out on Diamond Hill. No matter which way you slice it, as you go around the reservoir, you're going to end up in Diamond Hill either way.
I want to say, and without looking at a map, we ran those logistics going that way, and I believe it was 48 minutes total. Correct? Am I right on that? And the
Currently
original
48.
route was 42 minutes? The morning route? There was a 4-minute difference.
It's currently 48. That's our route today. And that's not accurate because we are the first bus out of the gate in the evening.
Again, no disrespect. Is it 48 from when your child is getting on the bus
In
until
the evening, from Community back home.
back to your doorstep?
This says 48. That's actually not accurate because they are the first bus on. So where it says 3:40, add 10 minutes to that because that's how long they're actually on the bus for. And in the mornings, they're picked up so early that they actually sit at the school for 6 to 7 minutes every single morning waiting to get off for 8:45.
I don't know if that's necessarily a busing issue. I apologize. I can see you in the audience making facial gestures, and I'm just trying to clearly understand the question. So they're sitting on the bus, or they're sitting in the classroom?
On the bus, in the morning.
Okay, I apologize. I
Yep.
was looking at something here.
On the
and
bus.
I'm
So
distracted.
being picked up at 8:01, granted, and we are the first stop in the morning, if I'm not mistaken, or Hannah Drive is actually the first in the morning. But 8:01 is how long, when they first get onto the bus from Cobblestone and make their way, they get to school 6 to 7 minutes in advance. I have a 5th grader. She took her phone out. She timed the whole ride.
Okay, so let's try to understand it. So
Yep.
when the bus arrives at Community, what is the proper protocol to empty that bus out with the students into the school? Okay.
8:45.
You're saying maybe a later in the back, in the front end? Okay.
And I think our neighborhood would be happy if we were the last stop in the morning to get picked up so that we drive in, or however that works. We're not saying we want the shortest route both directions. We know that's not possible, and we know that there's other kids that will suffer. We're saying our children are sitting on the bus for close to an hour back and forth. So it's unfair no matter which way you look at it for our kids, and there are kids on the bus that are on there for 10, 15 minutes both ways. We're just asking that the route be looked at and share the burden.
Okay, yeah, fair enough. I agree.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr.
can
DeMonica.
we get that list to Mr. Neves that you just did? Because if you're in, well, I mean, you said you're in logistics, so you've come up with a plan. That I would like him to get.
Hello.
Hi, I'm Mary Ellen Abramic, and I'm also, well, my kids are also on bus 26 going to Community, and I'm actually the mom of the special needs child that they were discussing earlier. I'm actually the 8th bus stop, not the 3rd bus stop. So if they reverse the route, it wouldn't really have any effect. That would be fine too. My issue is that I moved here about 5 years ago onto Reservoir Road. I was down on Aborn Avenue earlier. I have 2 kids in high school. I have 1 in middle, and I have 2 in elementary. So I've been, we've been on the bus for years and years and years throughout Cumberland. I mean, overall, we've had great experiences, great drivers, great monitors. I mean, been very blessed with that, I have to say. They've been very good. 2 of my boys have special needs. One of them kind of lost his diagnosis, so we're happy about that. But needless to say, my 5th grader has autism. Now, about 3 years ago, they asked us if we wouldn't mind not using the smaller bus because he was going to be on it for over an hour. Could he handle the big bus? And I thought that he could, and he was been doing great. And that was fine. They were getting home around 3:40. That was before all the time changes in the schools and everything. Well, then the bus time changed to, 3:50 in the afternoon. He was still doing okay with that, and that's fine. Well, now this year, it went to 4:08, and obviously it hasn't been on time, it's been all over the place. You know, that's 17 minutes later. He's coming home, having meltdowns. He's having a meltdown because he's having to sit in the hallway quietly. They have to sit silently or quietly in the hallway until at least 3:40 before they're even getting onto the bus or they're loading on the bus at that time. He's getting home, he's melting down. It's been a complete distraction for him all around the park. I can pick him up, you know, certain times. I'm actually a substitute too in Cumberland and Woonsocket. So when that picks up, I can't pick him up all the time. I picked him up a couple times this week, and I have to be honest. I mean, I've never seen so many cars picking up at Community. And most of the parents I've spoken to are saying it's because of busing. There's so many busing issues and busing problems. They're coming late, they're not coming on time, the kids are getting to school late. My specific problem is that, you know, I did take him off the smaller bus. I'm not asking for anything, you know, out of the ordinary or extra or special for him. You know, I did say no to the smaller bus, and it benefited the bus company, us, the school department. It's less money, and I get that. However, it's not fair to him when he's not getting that bus to be on the other bus for this, you know, long amount of time, and it's coming at different times. The first week of school, I always go out to the bus quite a bit early. I was out at the bus stop almost at the normal time that it used to come last year, just to be safe, and it came, you know, at 3:50 yesterday. Today, it was back to the normal time again. I don't even know what time to go out there anymore. I've actually been picking up at the first bus stop sometimes on Reservoir Road because I don't want them on the bus that long. My first grader's complaining, which, you know, I kind of tell her, you know what, you can tolerate it, it's okay. I don't think it's okay for my 5th grader to be having to deal with this, with the issues that he has. I've been very compliant with the bus company in the past. I haven't really had any major issues. Summer school was a disaster for the busing this summer. That's another story. I won't get into that. However, I don't think the bus route right now is working. I think something needs to be fixed. It's not, you know, we're not obviously the first family or, you know, to complain about this route, and there's been a lot of issues with it. So I'm really hoping that, you know, they can take care of something. I mean, I spoke with you the other day, very nice, and I really hope there can be some changes made, but I really think something needs to be done, and I don't really think it's fair, not just to my child, but all the children on the bus, and all the children in the school district that aren't getting to school on time, and parents that are having to pick up and make other arrangements. I mean, this is something that is supposed to be supplied to us, that we're paying taxes for. And, you know, with the dynamic that's happening now, it's really not, it's not working, it's not effective, and it's not good for the kids. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anyone else?
Hi, I'm Geraldine Perry. I originally was not going to speak tonight, but there's a couple of things that I have to say. And forgive me, I'm not a very good public speaker. First, I'd like to thank everybody for taking the time to be here tonight to try to resolve the issues that we're having for Bus 26. My kids have been, I have a junior in high school right now, and we have lived on Peggy Drive for the past 11 years. So in the whole 11 years that I have been there, every year at the beginning of the school year, I call up Durham to complain about what a long bus ride it is and trying to get them to reverse it, like, or flip it, I guess you could say. Flip the bus route. And for the past 11 years, I've been passed on and passed on and passed on. Nobody wants to deal with it. This year, I finally called up Mr. Mitchell, and I talked to Mr. Mitchell about the issue. And again, I appreciate your time in this matter. And then I hear some comments like, so somebody has to be last. Somebody has to be last on the bus. I can't stand that comment because we're not asking for special privilege. We're just asking to reverse it. So when you say it's not fair to the other students that are on the bus longer, just doesn't make sense to me. Because my kids, my bus stop, I'm not making any sense now, I can see that. My bus stop, my kids are on the bus, my daughter is on the bus for 2 hours. The other kids that get off at Reservoir Road, they're on the bus for a total of 30 minutes. That's combining both.
So,
both
Mrs. Perry,
pair into.
So you're saying your daughter is on the bus for 2 hours, round
Total,
trip?
total time.
Total 2
An
hours.
hour there,
But-
hour
but
home.
yet-
Not the only one parent that has stated that.
Okay.
Correct.
Yeah, and
Okay,
I don't
but
know what this 2 hour, why ever is everybody
So-
saying that this 2 hours is not correct? I
But
don't understand it.
I don't see them being on the bus for 2 hours. I'm showing 48 minutes. That's all I'm saying, is
Well,
I'm
okay,
trying to
so-
understand.
So I just want to
It-
make it clear.
60 minutes to
I'm
48
sorry,
minutes is.
Mary Ellen, I just need to say, our bus is the first bus to be picked up at community school. That is at 3:30.
Okay.
So 3:30, so it comes back here about 3:20. So you tell me, what's the math, 4:20. What's the math on that?
I understand.
Okay. 58 minutes, 2 minutes short of an hour. You
Okay.
gotta, so what's the
That's
point
what I'm
there?
asking you, yes. Okay.
Okay, and then another thing, the bus comes at 7:58 in the morning. It does not come at 8:01. That needs to be corrected. Then they get to the school at 8:40, and they're sitting on the bus for 6 minutes before they're allowed off the bus. That's all I need to say.
Okay, thank you. Did you sign in? Okay, thank you. Anyone else?
Route, can you hear me? This year her route got changed, and she was, sad about that because she had been a dedicated driver up the bus monitor on that route and had taken copious notes about every kid and their sibling and where they belonged through various different drivers. So this year she got changed, and I think she is on 21 with Ann, who I understand is out temporarily. My mom resigned this week because she was left 3 times in 4 days, waiting to be picked up. She's pretty sad about it. The first day we understand there's problems, first day of school problems. Second day is concerning. And then the third day it happened this week. She just couldn't do it anymore. So I just wanted to bring that to your attention. I know that the bus drivers have radios and that they're expected to have a monitor on the bus. So why they didn't call and find out where they needed to be to pick her up or where they wanted her to be, I'm not sure why that happened. But that bus 21 went without a monitor, and now she's quit. So I just wanted to bring that to your attention.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Please, yes, come on up.
She took very good care of Quinn. I just want to say
Thank
that.
you.
But I did want to say that other
If
stuff
you
that
could, if you could state your name.
Sorry, Mary Ellen Abramic again.
All right, thank you.
The bus, after it leaves my house on Burnt Swamp and Reservoir, it goes to Burnt Swamp, that other stop that they were talking about, and they actually have to turn around in front of the house. Now, I have to come out of my driveway and go around a corner and bring my kids to the bus stop over there. I don't know why the other people can't come to the Adams Farm corner even and get on over there instead of having the bus. That would save quite a few minutes right there also, because it does have to go down that road and turn around. It's another option that you could use.
That's a good point. Yes, thank you. Anyone else from the audience? Mrs. Perry, come on up. Perry, I apologize.
One more thing to say, this bus route has been an issue for the past 30 years. I need that to be clearly stated. This is a really serious issue, 30 years in the making.
Thank you. Yep, Mr. Fiorillo.
Paul, this is bus 26, correct? Which coincidentally is my daughter's bus. From on the McCourt side, though. So what I'd like to do, Paul, is arrange with you. I'll get on the bus from McCourt. I will ride the entire route, and if you guys can bring me back to wherever, Waterman
We
Street.
can work that out.
Yeah. I'll meet the bus at McCourt, and maybe you can just drop me off at McCourt.
We can work that out.
All right, and then I can report back at our meeting next Thursday.
Fair enough. Mr. Denner will be running that meeting next Thursday. There you go. Okay, good. Gene, thank you. Please, state your name.
Kate Ledoux. I also live behind the reservoir, but mine is for the middle school, bus 20. We have the same issues, but what they're not understanding is they're picking up the kids that live closest to the school and driving out, rather than coming back in and picking them up and going to the school. So that's one of the reasons why the kids are on the bus longer. I'm sorry. Can I say something to that? Because I also have another daughter that's on your bus.
Yeah.
I have
They
Come
come
on up.
around the
I-
same
Go ahead.
way
I
each
have-
time. It's one route. Whether they come around this way or they go that way, it's gonna be the same amount of time.
So my middle schooler, it's the first year ever, I'm sorry to say it, that it's been wonderful. Her bus gets she gets picked up at 7:28. She gets dropped off at 3 o'clock. It's beautiful. I love it, but it's
No.
not fair
Mine is
to the
20
people.
minutes earlier this year,
Right.
7:11. We are 10 minutes from the school.
So I just wanted to.
All right, thank you. We're,
It's bus 20, but
It's just for the school.
thank you. Please, come on up.
Tamika Sulier again. What's the policy on bus monitors for the elementary school?
Durham, would you like to?
Bus monitors are actually provided by the school department.
Or I'm sorry. Superintendent Mitchell, did you want to touch base on this?
Well, all I can say is, Marion Barone is here, and she works with the bus monitors, and I know that. Marion, do you want to respond to that? Like, where are we with bus monitors? I know that you are constantly working on that. I hate to put you on the spot, but I want to be accurate. Can you go to the mic, please?
First of all, it's Rhode Island state law that we have bus monitors in the elementary schools. Just elementaries is all that's required. So right now, we've lost about 6 bus monitors this year, which was a big blow to us. And we've been able to hire 3. Then we've had another resignation. So right now, I'm looking at the need for 3 full-time bus monitors and 2 morning monitors. Now, we've been working for about 6 to 8 weeks trying to interview people. It's difficult. A lot of people do not want to work an hour and a half in the morning, hour and a half in the afternoon for the pay salary that they receive. So it's very difficult. But we are working on that, and I'm hoping by October 1st that we can have all of the buses filled. And we continually work every day to try and accomplish that.
Thank you. Mr. Fiorillo.
Paul, when your drivers, go to pick up a bus monitor and the bus monitor's not there, and maybe the bus monitor hasn't called into Marianne yet, do they notify you? Do they have two-way radios on the buses?
They will radio into us that they're riding solo.
And then, what, if anything, can be done about that? From your end, probably not
There
much.
are times that we can take monitors that we have for some of our other contracts, and we're able to put on those buses, if those monitors are available, and if the timing works out where they can get picked up at whatever spot they need to get picked up.
If it's a critical route and we feel there definitely needs, it may be a troubled bus, it may be a bus that's in high traffic, we will take a monitor from one of our other contracts and place them on that bus. But it depends on the needs. We can't always do it though.
Is there a difference between bus monitors and bus aids?
Yes. Bus aids would basically be your minibus assistants, which means they've gone through,
And they work for you, correct?
yes. All of your minibus monitors or aids for Cumberland schools are our employees. The large bus monitors are your employees. And when Ann mentioned critical runs, every run is critical and should have a monitor. We understand that? But if you've got kindergarten students, especially, that are, have to be crossed on Diamond Hill Road or Menon Road, those are the runs we're definitely gonna put a monitor on as much as we can, if there's no monitor from the school department.
I believe I asked for this in the past. I'm not sure if I ever got the information. But I'd really like to see hard numbers of what it would cost if we were to turn the monitors over to Durham. Because it seems like there would be a little more flexibility with subs when we needed them. I know that they pay a little bit more, and I think they get benefits, correct? Your bus monitor?
They do receive some benefits.
So there'd definitely be a cost increase, but I'd like to see those numbers.
Thank you. And then do it, yeah. So come on up to the microphone. But before you start, I would like to say that I appreciate all the parents coming out tonight. I love the energy. And make sure you come out at budget time, right? When we're at the town. I got everybody's name. And we do other stuff as well. You can come visit Mr. Bill Dennon running the meeting next week. So, all right, go ahead. State your name.
Kelly Velizik. My children are on bus 20. One of my concerns is the bus monitor.
And what school? What school?
Community.
Community. Okay.
I'm lucky enough that my son, who is a kindergartner, gets on with my 5th grader, so she holds his hand and walks across the street. But there is no bus monitor, and she will clearly tell you that going down Little Pound County, people will just go by the sign. So people are crossing, and there's no monitor. I drive Mendon Road every morning. I go from North Cumberland to J.H. Lynch, and I drive Mendon Road. And I've watched bus 19 this week. Kids in elementary school cross Mendon Road without a monitor, and it scared the life out of me because I see how they drive on Mendon Road, and I'll hear the brakes because they come around the corner, and these kids are crossing by themselves, and it's not safe at all.
So maybe we can alert the police on this one to have some morning presence over there to maybe kind of set a standard for some of the drivers. Let's make that one a priority right away.
Yeah, I mean, Mendon Road,
I
bus
agree.
19, they're crossing right, I mean, over by St. Joseph's, all that. They come across, people come around the corner.
I'll personally call the chief on this one. I agree. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay. Mr. Mitchell, any closing statements here? I know we're pushing on the time. Oh, Mr. Fiorillo, I apologize. Go ahead.
Rush. Paul, what are black boxes?
Black boxes.
The contract specifically mentions black boxes and video cameras. What does that actually mean?
I believe the contract states, and I could not find that part of the contract.
It's actually in the bid from 2005 that you actually signed as a school committee person.
Black boxes would actually be the box that the video camera is put in.
That's the GPS
No.
No.
They mean the one with the hard drive goes in. Actually, the new cameras, the hard drive is a lot smaller. The number that is in that bid, and I am not sure, I
6.
think it was 6 randomly placed. We
Right.
definitely have those 6 on buses because when we find a bus that has some issues, either students...
Are they on the bus or are they watching the traffic?
No, these are on buses, watching the students, watching the bus driver's behavior, watching issues like that. They do not watch the traffic. Now, there is a company that does the traffic ones. We wouldn't recommend that because they're not defendable in court. Even if they get pictures and videos of them going by reds, or the flashing reds, it's not defendable in court. They can't issue tickets. Now,
Mr. DeMonica, I think there's a great conversation for the next school safety committee meeting to have the police department involved to see what their experience has been and what information they have.
in addition to,
I was interested in what the definition in the contract was for those black boxes. But we have a big problem, and I'm sure everybody in this room has seen cars go flying by buses when their lights are on and kids are actually loading buses. Happens on High Street all the time. You saw it the other day, you said. And I know that, I think we probably have all seen it, so we need to figure this out. Also, right, and that's fine. That would have to be something new. Also, when can we start utilizing the Durham bus tracker? Okay, because I was at your website and it says that it's at no cost to the district, to the parents, to nobody. So I'd like to get that happening so that parents can actually see when their kids' buses are running late, that we can actually, take account.
Great. Mr. DeMonica.
Before we do that with the bus tracker, I would like the school district to have a policy in place, because when you're dealing with a parent that may be on the list and not on the list anymore. There's parent separation or custody issues. That all needs to be addressed before we just put this up there for parents to go after. And, you know, I think we need to look at that.
I agree with you, and I do know that it's a secure login, and so there is a lot of safety around it, but your point is well taken.
Mr. Denon?
Smithfield, right? I think that's, well, there was one of the things I heard that if we had more transportation time, it would help. And I don't know how many minutes you mean, but one of the things that we did last year was we approved the early release Wednesdays, and what the effect that had was for elementary schools, they start 10 minutes earlier than they did the year before. Now, this has been in effect for over a year, so it's not new this year, it was new last year, but I think 10 minutes in the morning is a good chunk of time. And I just wonder, you know, do we need to evaluate that? Like if we're having busing issues, we can't get kids to school on time, do we need to change things up?
I think that's a great point. I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman. I think that's a great point because especially since next year we're talking about redistricting, so that's going to change the routes. We're also, hopefully, Mr. Mitchell, looking at changing start times here at the high school with any luck and, you know, $500,000 in small bills. But yeah, maybe juggling the routes and the tiers and everything is going to have to be a much
unfortunately,
bigger
I'm only
conversation.
bringing it up as a concern. I don't have a solution, but I think it's something we need to be aware of, that changed things. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Dunn. Go ahead.
But the times are the same last year, and like as far as our route goes, we didn't have a problem. The problem is we're getting picked up almost a half an hour later than we did last year. We were getting picked up at between 8:18 and 8:20, and we're getting picked up. Our slotted time is 8:41, but it's usually 8:58.
Yeah, I'm there. So I don't have an answer for that. I think that this didn't affect that. I noticed my kids get picked up earlier this year than they did last year, and they go to middle school. I don't know why, you know, and they're on the bus for a long time too. They're on the bus with Amy's daughter. So, you know, I look at it and say they're on much longer than last year. I don't know why.
Yeah, our problem is in the morning. They actually have a technical shorter bus time. They're picked up it's supposed to be 28 minutes later, but they don't get to school on time. So they're getting picked up at like 8:50, and then they're not getting to school on time because of the 20 minutes later. So like we said, last year was the perfect route.
Yeah.
They got picked up at 8:20 and they came home at 3:40, and
Yep.
somewhere
I
along the
hear
way
ya.
that got all messed up. So
I think we need some evaluation of when students are getting to school and if they're getting to school on time, because I think there's we can't have them getting to school after the school bell rings. We just can't. So I don't know how we do that.
Provide
A report. Yeah.
GPS report for what time every single bus got to the school since the first day.
That's great. And I think everybody understands that the first few days there are bugs to work out, you know, so I don't know if we want to just start it either this week or next week. Like, you know, everybody knows that, you know, we have time to work with. So thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Denon.
Bill, Jeff Collimer again. Bill, to that point, I'm curious to know with regards to community school, should that be looked at too, how long they're sitting at the bus? I don't know whether, I still am unclear whether that's Durham's responsibility or the school's responsibility if they sit there for 15 minutes.
So they're getting there too early. So I think we need to evaluate that as part of the route evaluation.
Yes, we do plan on some of them to be there early and know that they have to sit because there's 13 buses if you count the special ed. So it's going to take a certain amount of time to get them all unloaded and have them enter the school on time. So that is kind of planned that some have to get there and sit, and we apologize for that, but it takes a certain amount of time to unload them.
Yeah, I guess a follow-up to that then is that time also factored into the bus route, or is the bus route end when they get there and hurry up and wait?
Thank you. All right, anyone else? Next item on the agenda is to adjourn. Pleasure of I'm sorry. Come on up.
So there are some bus routes at community school that are quite a bit shorter than 26. So if some buses need, you have 13 buses, you said, at community school? So why can't you choose another bus to get there that's not on the bus as long?
Well, then, well, go ahead. I'll let Durham answer that. I mean, now you're crossing, well, you're kind of crossing schedules and crossing streets and a different route, and, I mean, I don't know. Yeah. No, you're fine. Go ahead, come on up.
My name is Jessica Burke, and my kids are on bus 19 from Ashton as well. And my question, I guess, is we're the 4th tiered school, Ashton, and our bus is coming from a 3-tiered school. That isn't going to work. So last year, our bus came from North Cumberland Middle School. It was seamless. There were no problems. So why is our bus now coming from Garvin? It's not going to make it. Our bus route, and we are the furthest route from Ashton School. So you're giving us a bus from a 3-tiered school to pick up our 4-tiered school to take us the furthest away. If you need to use that bus, give it to a school, give it to a bus route that is closest to Ashton to alleviate the times.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you for filling that out, too. Okay, pleasure of the committee. Mr. Fiorillo has a motion to adjourn. Do I have a second? Second by Mr. Denon. All in favor? Ayes have it, 7-0. Thank you again for coming out tonight, everyone. Have a good night.